Well, hello, my sweet babies and non-babies. Welcome to Consent at ABDL meetups and conventions. I am Mommy Black from the Little Baby Boo Nursery. Let's just pause right there. So when I first started doing this, I was planning on doing this one long video. Well, it got really long. So now we're gonna splice it up into 3 different videos. The first video is just gonna be all about consent, what it means, some of the myths that we face, and power dynamics. I'm gonna give a lot of examples so that you know exactly what I'm talking about. The second part is gonna be all about agency. So what can you do about it? What does good consent look like? And how convention or meetup organizers can ensure clear consent policies and make sure that everyone is safe. And then the third one is going to be a little spicy, and that's going to be about consent in dark age play environments. So that one is probably going to be demonetized, so I thought I'd put that in a separate one altogether. Also, not everyone is into sexual role play, so I figured that might be the best thing to do. And now let's continue. So I've been to tons of conventions, to a ton of meetups in different cities, different countries, all over the world. And there are a number of things that I've experienced. So I'm here to give you some stories. We're going to do a lot of story time. So consent is important everywhere in all types of play, right? But it's especially important in our community because there are so many dynamics, so many layers involved with what we do that it's really, really important that everyone is on the same page when it comes to consent. This video is not about obvious sexual assault or criminal behavior. That is never acceptable, ever. This video is more about the gray areas, or like the behaviors that technically might not be assault, but still cross boundaries, create discomfort, or put someone in a position that they're not consenting to. It's important to know that we all make mistakes. We're not perfect. And if you hear some of these behaviors that you've done, some of these behaviors, don't beat yourself up. There are a lot of folks here that are neurodiverse, and including me. And sometimes we don't get cues, right? So I'm going to go over some of those things, like what cues might look like. I'm going to give you some examples, and we're going to see. We're all going to learn together, right? Okay. So this video is brought to you by me. As you might surmise, sometimes my videos are not able to be monetizable because of the content that we talk about. So if you enjoy the content, please consider donating with the super thanks, or even better, join our YouTube story time. It's $5 a month, and I read a story. You get to help pick out what it's going to be. It's a sweet little membership for people, sweet little babies and non-babies. So what is consent? What consent is really about is communication. Communication between 2 folks, or possibly more. It's an agreement to engage in typically sexual acts, but when we're talking about cons, it can be non-sexual, just touching in general. And it doesn't even have to be touching. It can be behaviors. So it's behaviors between folks. At ABDL conventions, consent issues are kind of amplified, and that's for many reasons. You know, a lot of people, when they're going to meetups or conventions, they're super excited because they're not often able to play in normal life. So when you go, you're like excited. If you're little, you get to like dress all cutesy and littlesy. And if you're a caregiver like myself, you get to see all the cute babies, and you're like, it's all exciting, and there's like a lot of energy, and you get like crafts, and it's just really great. It's a really great time. People have like high emotions. You have a lot of folks who are possibly going into little space and who are incredibly vulnerable in little space and are just in a different mindset, right? And of course, there are age play dynamics. So you have like big, little, and that can inherently have some power dynamics, right? So a great way to learn about consent is the acronym F.R.I.E.S. Freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. So let's go into F.R.I.E.S. Freely given, so consent is made without pressure, manipulation, or force. And I think that we can run into difficulty with that because sometimes part of age play is having that kind of little who is a little bratty, and the role of the caregiver is to just push through that and stuff. And that's very different. It's very, very different for folks who are in relationships, who already have that dynamic going. A lot of this is going to be for folks who don't know each other very well and who are at conventions or meetups. It cannot be given if someone is incapacitated or reversible. So anyone can change their mind and withdraw consent at any time, Even if they said yes before, it is ongoing and can be withdrawn at any time. There is a really great video. It's the T, looking at consent like it's tea, and I'll link it in the description below. But it's the whole idea that like you can ask someone if they'd like a cup of tea, and they could be like, yes, I would love a cup of tea. That sounds delicious. But by the time you've gone and you've boiled the kettle, you've steeped the tea, you've added all of the accoutrements, and have come back, if that person is like, no, you know what, I don't really want tea anymore. You don't try and shove the tea down their throat, right? That's crazy. And so you can compare that to any sort of attention, and not just sex, but just any sort of anything. That could be like with any play. If you're talking to somebody, this is great for like dark nursery play. You decide that you want to get together and do something with someone at one point, and that person's like, rah, rah, yes, this is exciting. I'm totally into this. And then later on, they're chilling. They're in maybe like little space. They're not really thinking, you know, any sort of sexual stuff or any sort of like, dark age play, and you're coming up to them and you're being very sexual with them. That's no bueno. You can't just make that assumption that because they were back in the day saying, yeah, that like now they're just at this specific moment that they're just raring to go. I informed. Both parties know exactly what they're agreeing to. This is explicit and not implied by clothing or role. So don't assume that someone who is wearing Little's clothing is gonna want to engage with you and be your Little specifically. And this can be for like switches, caregiver, Little's, dynamic, whatever. Just because they're wearing something doesn't mean that they are wearing that for you or that they are into whatever you're into. So many people come to the ABDL spaces for very, very different reasons. Are a lot of fallacies within our community that we all are like the same, and we are very not. We've just kind of got this amalgamation of a bunch of different type of people. E, enthusiastic. Consent is a hey, not a maybe, not a silence or absence of a no. And S, specific. Just because they're engaging in one thing that's slightly related to this other thing doesn't mean that they're wanting to do this other thing. For example, if they're willing to be changed, doesn't necessarily mean that they want to engage in sexual play. So it's important to remember that consent is a conversation. It doesn't need to be you pulling out a contract or you're like, check this box, you know, whatever. But it is 100% about communication and not assuming. Do not assume anything. All right, now let's go into the myths. The common consent myths at ABDL conventions, where people say, this is a kink to me, so therefore it is a kink to everyone. No, 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 no. So folks who believe that the ABDL community, that adult babies and littles are always sexual, that is a fallacy. That littles are always interested in performing kinky things, and that if someone is cute or even scantily cute, like a lot of people like to wear diapers and just like t-shirts, and to them that feels super comfortable and super cute. Just because they're not wearing a ton of clothing, that doesn't mean that they're sexual or they're interested in being sexualized or they're interested in playing with you. Okay? There are a lot of reasons that people come to these conventions: for regression, for comfort, for community, just to make friends with other littles, for self-expression, just to be freaking cute. There are a high number of people who come to me who are survivors of severe childhood trauma. It's not everybody, but I find that it tends to be the case for the folks that are coming in and wanting to engage in like non-sexual age regression. Please remember that. So I really feel like the public spaces should be safe spaces. It's a little bit more difficult for things that are happening at dungeons. I mean, that's always a tricky situation. That's actually one of the reasons that we started the nursery, because it was crazy to me that like folks were trying to regress and be cute and little and play games and they were surrounded by all of these really highly sexualized furniture and things like that. So this is interesting. The quote is, they're dressed little, so they want interaction. It's funny because I just keep thinking of these examples. People are so different, and they can be like, for instance, I have two littles that I tend to go to conventions with. One is super bubbly, outgoing. She's very, very friendly, but she really doesn't want to engage with other people. She will, she's great at it, but she really doesn't. And so she'll get a lot of attention from people who are just like, oh, she seems like, you know, she's having a good time and she seems like she wants to engage, and she just doesn't. The great thing that conventions and some meetups do is they'll give you like name tag colors. So it'll be like green for, yes, I'm open to communication, I'm open to people coming up. Yellow, which is, I tend to do yellow, is I'm okay for the most part, but like sometimes I just need my space. Like sometimes it's just too much. And then red is like, you know, I'm just here with other people and like I just want it to be ours. So hers is always like red. And it's so funny because you see her and you're like, oh, she's so cute. And like, you know, you're thinking that she wants to do stuff. And then my other little Bean, he is like so intimidating looking. He's got tattoos all over himself. He just looks intimidating, but he wants to talk to everyone and he's just really shy. So he's always wearing the green badge. And it's so funny. You would never think it just looking at them. So don't judge a book by its cover is basically what I'm saying. Don't make assumptions. And I get it. When they're dressed little, like they're super cute. I think words hit differently based on your intent. That's huge. I think small things like telling people, like if someone's dressed cute, to tell them you're really cute, that's okay. Because if you're coming from a space of like, again, the trauma-informed consent, right? If you're coming from a space where you really are just seeing them as cute and like, again, not taking it into a sexual weird path, and you're just complimenting them, that can make people feel really good. But there's a difference between that and saying, you're really cute. You know, and just that can be creepy. Just don't do that. If you're coming from a place where it's something that you would say to like your niece or nephew, like something that you would say to them in that way, I think that that's okay. But again, you might run into people who are not okay with that. And if there's ever a time where you say something and they have a really bad reaction, do not get defensive, because that is not going to help anyone. Apologize and say, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend. I'm really sorry that I made you feel uncomfortable. Simple. It's very simple. You don't have to go on and try to, sometimes, you know, we want to explain, you know, where we're coming from, but sometimes it's best just to kind of walk away or to just, you know, mea culpa and like not engage further, because then you could just continue to traumatize somebody. Yeah, it's basically just don't be a creep. Quote, it's a convention, so touch is expected. No. So from my experience, it is really difficult to go to meetups and conventions as a big, especially doing this professionally. I want to go up to all littles, really, okay, not just littles, to everybody and just be like, oh my God, you're so cute. Let me just give you a hug and let me just give you some smooches on the forehead and kisses and besitos and everything like that. That is my natural way about me. Like I am very touchy, I am very huggy, I am very loving. It is so difficult for me to go to like meetups because I see a little and I just want to, but I can't because I don't know them. Now, for me, in my eyes, everybody, I click into mommy space. And so everybody is like little to me. They're like little things. I don't see adults. I see like babies, right? So I have to make a concerted effort to keep my hands to myself and to be very respectful and like communicate through little ways. I don't tend to be like, hey, is it cool if I treat you as a little? You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It can be like initially, oh, would you like a sippy cup or would you like a juice? So I try not to go into this caregiver role initially. It's the difference between saying, would you like a juicy cup, and just being like nice and sweet, to something different where it's like my little or someone that I know and be like, would you like a juicy cup? Huh? There's a difference. So you can still be a caregiver and be in a caregiving role, but it's really just that you have to start out more respectfully. And again, I'm a very touchy person and I have a hard time with this. I want to, when I'm talking to people, I tend to like kind of touch their arm, and I haven't had an issue with that because I'm not like, it's more of just like a kind of a loving thing. Do not assume that if you see someone doing that, like say you see me doing that to someone that you are going to have the same energy, and that you can go up and touch that person, because you don't know if another person who's doing it, if they know them, you know, what their relationship is like. Especially with trauma-informed consent, like you don't know where they're coming, you don't know how that can trigger them. So please don't do that. This kind of ties in, this story that I'm going to tell you ties in with this next one. They're playing with that person, so it must be, they must be okay with that. They must be like willing to play. Boone and I were at a convention, and we were just in an open space that was like all play. And we had all been cuddling. She was very, you know, touchy-feely with me, and she was looking cute, and she's very curvy and just really cute. And I got pulled away. So when I left, there was a guy who was sitting next to her, and he just basically felt that it was okay to just put his arm around her waist and talk to her like she was little. Unfortunately, like in a lot of those situations, when you're put in those situations and you're in little space and your partner has just left and you're not thinking, you're just having a good time, you're not always going to have the wherewithal to be like, no, and or like not push people off, but you just are. And we've all been in it when we're in the situation where we're just like kind of in shock. So some common trauma responses are fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So what that was freeze. That was a situation where someone took advantage of the situation. And I'm not saying that they were necessarily coming from a bad place. I don't want to say that because, and that's why I'm doing this specific thing, is because he may have not known. He may have just assumed that it was okay, that everyone going there, that if it was sort of like a free love type thing, that everyone there was like, very, you know, is going to be very friendly, and it's okay to just play with littles if they're playing. That is not the case. Then two, tied in with this, they didn't say no. So there are going to be a lot, like I've mentioned before, there are going to be a lot of times when littles are in little space, vulnerable. Someone comes up to them, engages with them, and they're in little space like a kid. It's a lot like a kid. Just assume that if someone's in little space, that they are, it's how you would talk to your 5-year-old niece, nephew, whatever, or little sibling. Right? Assume everyone's your little sibling. I think that's a great way to look at things. Just assume you have 1,000 little siblings surrounding you. If you start engaging, a lot of times little kids are going to they're going to be in shock because they're not expecting it, because they're in little space. And if you throw in a dynamic of being a caregiver, a lot of times they're, along with that whole thing of them wanting to please people, and they can be very different IRL. In real life, gonna be completely, that's the thing with ABDL dynamics. IRL, like how you act out in the world, is very, very different than in ABDL spaces. 100%. I can tell you from being, even from the caregiver role, like how I am in real life versus when I go into mommy space, they're different. And what I let people get away with when I'm in mommy space is very different than how I am out amongst the public, the normies. So it is important to know that just because they didn't say no doesn't mean to continue doing that behavior. It's better to err on the side of caution and say, is this okay? Is it okay if I give you a hug? Even then, I think it's difficult because there are so many folks too in this community that are neurodiverse and who have a hard time reading people and reading like signals. And I would say that unless, that's where the enthusiastic yes comes in. If you're trying to engage with someone who you don't know, even someone who you do know, but more importantly, because a lot of people that are going to conventions and meetups are strangers, it tends to be that way. Unless you get an enthusiastic yes, I would just err on the side of caution. Quote unquote, we're all adults here. See, that's what I'm talking about. Like when folks are, we are all adults, that is factual. But the thing is with age regression, their body is an adult, but their mind is not. That's what we all need to remember. That's not saying that if a little does something that is, it doesn't give them carte blanche to like go and like set things on fire, but true, like cute little space regression is akin to someone turning into a little 5-year-old, your little sibling. I'm going to give you an example. This is a little bit different, but for me, it was really interesting. He has been in the ABDL community for forever. And he is used to being able to talk freely about what he does and the kinks that he has. And he is very open about sexual stuff and all of that. And I'm typically fine with it, especially because I've known him for so long. So he was meeting a friend of mine. She's also in the ABDL community. We were having lunch. During this conversation, he just let it fly. He was like just talking about like the kinkiest ABDL stuff, just like crazy stuff that I may have blushed a little bit, where I was just like, oh, okay, I'm having my cheese stick, but I guess we can talk about this. I'm not even going to say it here, but it was a lot. It was a lot. So I knew the thing is with my friend, even though she doesn't seem like it, she's still very conservative. She's very conservative when it comes to being in public. And even though ABDL, there are sexual aspects for her, she didn't really know this person, and she was just kind of taken aback. So later on, I tried to have this conversation with my male friend, and I was just like, hey, listen, not everybody feels the same way, and not everybody's as open as you are or as open as I am. So we need to be kind of careful when we're talking to folks in, other folks that we don't know. I'm trying to say that we don't know. And he got really offended by that. And he was just like, well, no, this is a kink. And I figured that if she has a kink, then she would be okay with that. And he couldn't understand that even though it was a kink for her, that we're adults, that she maybe doesn't want to engage like that with him. And she just didn't know him. And even if she knew him, she still is just not that type of person. Just because someone has a kink doesn't necessarily mean that they're open to talking about everything with you or with anybody. Sometimes people just keep it close to the vest. So even though we're all adults there, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to be in an adult space when you're talking to them. So please remember that. Again, assume that they're all your little 5-year-old siblings. Okay. This last one, which we've kind of gone over many times, the caregiver energy is always welcome. This is so difficult for me. It's so hard for me that I'll even see bigs as little. I'm not gonna lie to you, even with pretty much anyone there, it's very difficult for me. I do have just kind of a mommy black space. It's who I am. I go into that to my character, into when I'm in these spaces. I have another example of this. The hardcore caregiver energy is not always welcome, especially, and I find that again this goes with the sexual non-sexual thing, that I had another friend who for him it was a kink. But he also understood that for other littles, it wasn't a kink. And he wants to love everyone. And because he wasn't really able to express himself as a little growing up, he really wants to try and give that to other people. He really wants people to be able to feel little. Like sometimes when he goes into that with littles, like it's very, very welcome. Like a lot of times it is very welcome. And like people are just like, yes, just baby me. Yes. Change my diaper, do whatever. And it is very welcomed. But there are the times where he has done it and people have actually outright just said, I don't know you. Why are you acting that? And I've also heard from other people after he's done that they didn't feel comfortable saying anything to him at that time. And they just kind of went along with it because they were like, well, I guess this is what he needs. He needs to be big or whatever. And then later on they were like, yeah, that made me kind of uncomfortable because he hadn't talked to me about it beforehand and made sure it was okay with me. So it's very, very important that even if you get a few people that are amenable to it, that is not always going to be the case. And you really do need to communicate with folks. I'm just thinking of the time. So when I go to conventions sometimes, and even when I go to meetups sometimes, I am dressed not as a mommy. Like I get tired. I just like to wear just cute clothes. Like it's really funny. I will wear, and you've seen this, where I'm wearing my strawberry shortcake sweater. If we find cute stuff, like my littles and I we'll sometimes like buy cute little like pants or little outfits because we think they're cute, and they're cute. That being said, I am very much a mommy. I am 100% mommy. I'm not a switch. I am always very dominant. I'm not submissive at all, right? That's typically my energy that I put off, even in the less than 5'3", I say 5'3" anyway, a small frame person than I am, I'm still very intimidating, even in my strawberry shortcake sweater. One time as I was dressed like that, I went to the restroom, and as I was coming out, there was this There was this mommy who was there, and it was so funny to me because she was just like, oh, I'm about to start I don't remember what she was doing. She was like, I don't think it was a story time. It was like a coloring something or other. And she was so sweet. She was so sweet, but she was just like, oh, I'm going to start this. And like, you know, if you want to come, you can come. And she was talking to me like I was a little, and I just found that hilarious because I was like, oh, lady, you don't know who I am. But like, so I was just like, oh, I'm a mommy, but like, thank you. And maybe we'll come anyway, you know. I just thought that was the funniest thing. I was like, oh, girl, let me show you something. Also, this is an issue that happens where littles just assume that if you're big, that you want to engage with them, that you want to play with them. So just like I would say, don't just talk in that sort of language to littles, the same goes for bigs. I get this a lot. And for the most part, actually, me being a professional, this is what I do for a living. And like I said, I go into adult space. I don't mind that. I really don't. I actually people have asked me how they should refer to me. And I always say as mommy, I see that as my first name almost. Like, I like that. It doesn't mean that I necessarily want everybody to come and like interact with me and just, they want me to be their mommy the entire time, but you know what I mean? But I don't mind when people come up to me and are talking in a little, I like that. I like when people are little around me because it helps me to, because like I said, I'm like always in mommy space, especially at these conventions and meetups. So for me, it's fun. And so when I know that someone is, this is talking about cues, when someone is coming up to you and they are cueing to you that they are okay with you, like talking to them as if they're little, if they're talking in like little language, if they're just like being cutesy and they're just like, you know, talking in like baby talk, that is a really great cue that they're okay in engaging that way. Does that mean that they want you to pull their diaper and see if you have anything? No. Does that mean that they want you to touch them? No, that is not what that means. That means that just treat them like they are little and be very respectful. Consent in different convention contexts. So I firmly believe that public spaces like hotel lobbies, hallways, elevators should be safe spaces. That's how a lot of conventions are set up, where the public spaces are non-sexual and cutesy and little spacey and sweet, baby friendly. And then they have like dark age play rooms. And I love that. That's so fantastic because you have a lot of folks. Can you just imagine? Come into a convention, you come from kind of a messed up background, but you find that little space is a way for you to relax and just feel cute and get away from all of the craziness of society. You're coming there, you're looking cute. You see, you're playing blocks, you know, you're playing with other littles, and it's a way for you to just tap out. And then you see some folks just like making out and grinding on each other. Like, that will take you out of little space in 2 seconds. Like, I get it. We're all adults. We're there. Sometimes we're with our partners and like, we just want to give them some, you know, a little kiss, a little sweet loving. And sometimes that might excite you. But the thing is that other people around you aren't consenting to that. They're not consenting to sexualized behavior. And for me, I always look at little space and littles as actual tiny tots. And I try not to, in any situations where I'm like throwing a meetup, do anything that I wouldn't do around like an actual kid. That's how I see it, because when people are regressing, they are going to this space, this little space where they are regressing to a little kid. And so that's a really great way to mess someone up, is if they're chilling and cute and then you bring some non-consensual sexual stuff in their safe space. I'm just saying, like, get a room. You're there with a room. Like, you know, go to the dark nursery. Be respectful is really what it is. Just be respectful of the people around you. Common courtesy. I think what's really important in our community is trauma-informed consent. Going back to that, it links with it. The whole idea that folks have assume, not everybody's going to have a history of trauma, but there's a significant portion of people that do. So assume, I think it would be safe to just assume that a lot of people if you're going to a convention or a meetup, that a lot of people are going to have histories of trauma, and that folks there are going to be very, very vulnerable, and that they are expecting to be in a safe space if they're not in like designated dark age play areas. But that being said, great place if you are just about the sexual aspects. There are designated places for that, and you go have yourself a good time. That's what they're there for. The vendors. Don't start hitting on the vendors. Don't start assuming that if the vendor is talking to you that they're interested in playing with you. I mean, they're doing a job. Leave them alone. Be nice, be respectful, but just let them be. They're working hard, very, very hard. There's so many people. This is specific to conventions, not meetups. There usually aren't a lot of vendors at meetups. Let them be, like those poor babies. Oh, this is another one with the consent, with littles coming up too. So sometimes you'll have vendors who are bigs, who are there, and you know, like a lot of people will know that they are bigs. Don't assume that because someone is big, so someone, especially in vendor spaces, that they want to be your big. So social events and play areas, consent is still required. This is going back to the idea of like safe spaces in like play areas, and like you're regressing and then like people start doing weird stuff. So I'm gonna talk about two things. Tantrums. I don't think that tantrums are appropriate in safe spaces. Why? I mean, people can be like, oh, well, I'm just in little space and I tantrum when I'm in little space, or I'm a brat in little space, and this is how my caregiver and I interact. And what's wrong with that? I'm little, you know, whatever. I don't think that that's acceptable. Why? Because going back to consent, I have one little who is, I'm gonna say she's a little bit of a brat, but she's a little bit of a brat. Now, I love her. Okay. But beyond her, I don't like bratty behavior. It can be kind of cutesy, but continued bratty behavior, I don't like it. It's really annoying. It pulls me out. I feel like it's very disrespectful. People tantruming, people yelling, crying, screaming, not getting their way. It can be really, really triggering. It can be very upsetting. I know for me, like I get really not nervous, but really just like my body like tenses up, and it makes me really uncomfortable. So if that is your dynamic with your caregiver, again, that's okay. I love that. I love that for you. Y'all are, you know, fitting well together. That's amazing. But please keep that to spaces where people around you are okay with that kind of behavior. So if you don't know if people are okay with that kind of behavior, it's not appropriate. This goes along with pooping. It is not okay for you to soil yourself, to mess yourself in public. The same claim can be made, I'm little, I don't know what I'm doing. This is where it does come to the A part of the adult baby. These two things in particular. No, it's not okay. Peeing yourself's okay. It still can be, please God, don't do too many pees because it can get smelly. Please just, and again, that's a consent thing. Like no one wants to be around that. I mean, there might be some people that want to be around that. Again, it goes to the smell. And a lot of these diapers do not hold smell well. Same thing with like body odor. Please wear deodorant. Do not have any crazy odors that are like, you know, you're sitting in pee for a million hours. It may feel good to you. You may like that feeling, but like, I don't want to smell it. People don't want to smell it. Please, if you know that you have to go potty, go up to your room and go potty. Go into a bathroom and go potty. If you like the feeling of peeing in your diaper, go into the bathroom and sit on a toilet in your diaper and go be there and then change your diaper. How about that? I think that that's a really great compromise. Yeah? All right, so let's talk about power dynamic and how it can be very complicated, especially with our community. I touched on this a little bit about the natural dynamics of caregivers and littles. You know, it's meant to be that caregivers are in charge and littles are little and they're like little babies, right? Experience imbalances. So people who are newbies versus the folks who have been doing it for a while, veterans, people tend to give a lot more credibility to people who have been in the age play community. And I'm here to tell you, don't necessarily do that. Just because you're new to age play does not mean that you are not valid, that what you want to do, what your interests are, that they are not valid. That is not true. Social capital. So if you are a creator, if you are staff, part of like the meetup staff or hosts or the convention hosts, we have an obligation, we have a duty, different kind of duty. there is a power dynamic there. And what I was talking about before is age regression and vulnerability, that once people are regressed, they are vulnerable. And I am a firm believer that the more power or perceived power that you have, the more responsibility that you have. Even though we are all adults, and people do need to accept responsibility for their own body and consent and their own communication. Caregivers, bigs, people in any perceived power can cross consent boundaries more easily. So we have to be more aware of that, because if you are a big, you're in adult space, right? You have everything that comes with being in an adult brain. Whereas littles, if they pull out of little space, they're in an adult brain, but like if they're in little space, it can be very difficult for them. They can have issues with consent. This is a true thing. I always think it's better to err on the side of caution with a lot of this stuff. And that's why it's so important, actually, because of these power dynamics, to really get that enthusiastic consent and an enthusiastic yes, and really have these conversations before engaging in any sort of play. It may not be the most fun thing to do before you're engaging with someone, especially when it's so fun. A lot of people just love just naturally going into that, and they feel a lot of littles just want you to like take control and like just have them in little space all the time and not be, you know, having to worry about anything. But I think it's necessary to have adult space every, you know, so often, to like check in and like to constantly be checking in to make sure that your little is okay and to make sure that what you are doing is okay. So hopefully you've learned a few things from this video. That is my goal, to teach all the behbehs. Like I said at the beginning, we're not all perfect. Some of us don't know a lot about this stuff. Some of us have a hard time with social cues, and that's fine. It's all about the learning. So part 2 is coming up. The next 2 are not as long. This one was the big meat and potatoes of everything. It's a lot of information that I really wanted everybody to know about. Part 2 is going to be about what good consent looks like and what we can do if boundaries are crossed. And it also goes into overall what we can do as a community, as our ABDL community, to come together to actually have an open dialogue about consent and to not make it so taboo. So thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate you being here. If you found any of this of value, please share it with another little that you think might learn or get a hint. Just kidding. If you got this from someone, I don't know. Also, please throw up a like if you found value in this. Join us over at Storytime. It's a lovely place. Or for those of you who just want to talk about stuff, I do sessions every once in a while. So go ahead and take a look at that QR code. It's right there, or right there. It might be right there. It's somewhere around here. And let's talk. All right, babies. Thank you for being here. I love you all so very much. Besitos to every single one of you. Have a great day. Oh wait, I hope you, God, I've already crossed boundaries with sending you loves that you haven't asked for. I apologize. No, I don't do nothing. Bye. Terrible, terrible.